Hello, my name is Jessica. I'm from Northern California, but at the time I had been living in New York for 3 years. I served in Baruun-Urt, which is the province capital of Sukhumvit. I worked at what was then Timurta's complex school, but is now second school. I was here for 2 years, 2011 through 2013. I was a M22.
Did you first find out or figure out you wanted to apply to Peace Corps?
Always kind of wanted to do it since I was in high school, not really knowing what it was, just kind of seeing it on TV and stuff and knowing it was some kind of thing where you could travel to a place you wouldn't normally go and do, helpful work.
Mm-hmm.
I just finished my master's degree and I was living in New York, working at a chocolate shop and feeling a little stagnant. And I had kind of mentioned to a friend in passing, oh, screw it, maybe I'll just join the Peace Corps. And she's like, that's actually a really good idea.
Mm-hmm.
And so that validation kind of put it in my mind. And I was like, well, I'll just apply and see what happens. And as you know, the application process is incredibly long and arduous. So by the time it was done, I was like, well, I've put this much effort in, put a year of my life into this, and might as well go.
First heard that your mission was in Mongolia. What did you think?
I was really, really thrilled because I had gotten to Central Asia and I was kind of looking into what was included in Central Asia, looking at the possibilities, and it was Azerbaijan, Georgia, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan, I think, and I had just looked at the pictures of Mongolia and was kind of reading up on Mongolia, and it just really seemed magical in a way. Still is magical, but
Yeah.
I was like, oh, horses and rolling steppe and the Motorho and all this stuff. So I had a very vivid imagination about what Mongolia would be. And so when I got that assignment, I was really pleased.
How was your first initial impression of Baruun-Urt?
My first impression of Baruun-Urt was that it was much nicer than Lonely Planet said it would be. They gave us these packets when we first got in that had been taken, I think, from the 2008 or 2009 Lonely Planet, that basically, I think they described Baruun-Urt as the surface of the moon. So I had very low expectations going in, but I came in and I was like, oh no, this is a quaint, kind of small town.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the central square. I liked that it was kind of compact.
Who was the first person you met when you got there?
The very first person I met was Dawa, who was my primary counterpart, and it was her and a group of the other teachers from Timurta's school. They all kind of collected me from the bus station, took me to my house, sat me down for a little while, and then left me alone, which was nice, actually.
How was the first day of school?
The first day of school was incredibly overwhelming. It was also my birthday, so there were a lot of emotions on that first day.
Wow.
So I think the first impression most people had of me was me crying, which was not ideal, but it was all right.
How many classes were you teaching throughout the first school year?
When school year began, I think it was 6 official classes and then 3 speaking clubs. And then I was supposed to teach a class for the courthouse workers.
Mm-hmm.
But then as the school year ran on, people kind of slowly dropped out. And I think at the end it was about 4 or 5.
How many of your clubs and things on your secondary side progressed, and which ones were kind of faltering?
The 2 that went really well were sort of a English speaking and writing club, which I then combined with a critical thinking club that I had maybe 5 or 6 really dedicated students in, and they kind of became my core of people that I worked with. I had another speaking club for, I think it was 4th graders, and that kind of dropped off pretty quickly, I think because, they just weren't that interested in it quite yet, and their English skills weren't particularly strong yet, and they were kids, they wanted to play, they didn't want to be inside.
Exactly.
Club, which I don't blame them.
How was the first year in comparison to your training period, which is the first 2.5 months?
Training, I really, really loved training, partially because I was really, really close with my training site friends, the other people in my training site. We were in a very cute town in the Salang Amag, like really, really beautiful, right next to the river, rolling green hills. Also, I'm just a person that likes school more than work, so like training just kind of suited my temperament more than sight did. Yeah, it was a hard transition. I definitely felt, I mean, I had sight mates in my IMAG center, but it definitely felt at first like we were kind of left out alone. Training felt like camp, and work felt like work.
Exactly.
Basically. Yeah.
For the first year, how did you get along with your counterparts and like meeting everyone in town, and how was that experience?
I was lucky in that my primary counterpart and I got very close very quickly. And she had previous experience working with Americans, so she kind of knew how to deal with me. My other counterparts were also very nice, and we worked well together. Getting to know people in town, I would mostly do it through my counterparts or through other people that my sight mates knew. So it was kind of like a network you would build. I didn't meet a lot of people just one-on-one at first, because my language skills weren't to the point where I could really meet people.
How was your language skill in the first year?
I mean, honestly, like, I think it was better in the first year than it was in the second year, which is one of my big regrets of my service, is that I didn't spend more time learning language. I got a little burned out, and also I kind of had justified it to myself as, well, you know, I'm here to teach English, I'm not here to learn Mongolian. Although now I am here to learn Mongolian, so I kind of wish that I had tried a little harder back then. But it definitely, language learning is a lot of work, and it's frustrating, especially with a language as hard as this, but I think it can make time a lot easier. Like if my Mongolian had been better, I would have had a better time, I think.
How was it? Was it easier or was it more difficult the second year after your first?
Second year was much easier because, first of all, I knew how things worked, and I also got a lot better at setting up boundaries. So if there was something I really wasn't going to do, or knew wasn't going to happen, or thought was kind of a waste of time, I would just say no, and I realized that was okay to do. And I realized that I also learned the way to do it that people wouldn't get upset or offended.
Right.
So it was much easier in that respect. I did a lot more work that I wanted to do. And I'd also kind of like pinpointed the people that wanted to work with me, and I realized I didn't have to force the people who didn't want to work with me to work with me.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was easier.
And for your, I want to say, mental health, was it very difficult to process being here by yourself and, you know, missing family? Did you go through the motions, so to speak?
I did. It wasn't, nothing horrible happened, but there were definitely kind of dark days in winter. And it's really easy to self-isolate as well, especially when you are kind of alone in a site. I think it might be harder for summers than IMAX Center people for that reason, but maybe not, you know, because then you do sort of over-rely on your site mates, which I think can also be turned into kind of codependent relationships that aren't always the best. So yeah, it was hard, but it wasn't insurmountable. But I did witness a lot of trouble from other people. I was lucky. I was especially lucky in that I had the counterpart that I did.
How was, like, you know, the holidays and the different celebrations throughout the year? How was your experience with the Mongolians?
Sagansar was like simultaneously really fun and really horrible because of the like forced eating and drinking. Yeah. So there was something like really nice about getting up early in Sagansar, and the whole town is kind of quiet and snowy, and you go to your friends' houses. But then by the end of it, you're like so disgustingly full and drunk, you like can't really progress. So like that was fun, and it was a good way of like sort of strengthening community ties. Naadam is totally fun and great. I got nothing bad to say about Naadam.
Did you go to Naadam and Sukhbaatar?
I didn't actually ever go to Naadam and Sukhbaatar. I was in my first year. I was in at the training site.
Right.
My second year, I actually went to Dornod.
What?
Yeah.
Betrayed.
I know. I'm a bad person. And then I was gone before Nottingham the third year. And this year I tried to go to Nottingham too in Sukbata, but I missed it. So maybe it's just not in the cards.
So when you finally COS'd, what was the feeling?
Honestly, it was a pretty positive feeling. I mean, I was sad to leave, but I was ready to go.
Yeah.
I did shed some tears over my counterparts and friends, because I did honestly think at that point that I would never see them again.
Right.
Not knowing that I
Of
would be
course.
back in like 2 summers, because apparently I can't stay away. But yeah, it was like a mixture of sadness and relief, and accomplishment that I survived. Yeah.
When you first got back to America, what kind of emotions did you deal with while you were back in country?
Well, I think so. The first month was really just sort of joy and relief at being back in a culturally legible place. It was very weird to understand everything everyone was saying all the time, and I had to like recalibrate my tuning people out mechanism. I did cry at a grocery store once, as I think everyone does.
Could you elaborate on that experience?
So it wasn't actually what people tell you, which is like, oh, you're gonna go to a grocery store, be so overwhelmed by the bounty that you're gonna cry. It was actually that my mom had asked me to go pick up buffalo chicken strips for my brother. She likes. So I went to the buffalo chicken strips section of the frozen food aisle, and there were just so many different brands of buffalo chicken strips that I just couldn't handle it, and I couldn't handle the possibility of having to choose one brand of buffalo chicken strips, and so I started to like sob.
How long after you got back into the States did you feel normal again, or did you ever?
I'd say 6 months, honestly. The first month was a lot of like elation, and then after that you kind of have to deal with like this lack of stimulation. It kind of feels like
Really?
you're like things are so normal, and you're back again in like a not culturally strange environment, so you're no longer having to sort of negotiate new things every single day, and I feel like that almost kind of like leaves like an adrenaline gap in your brain or something, and it really kind of bums me out for a while. It was just things were too normal, and there were like no daily challenges, and so I had to kind of readjust to that. So that was kind of difficult, and also it was like, you know, it was hard to get a job, readjustment allowance is not enough. It was, yeah, it was a tough time.
Overall, how was your entire Peace Corps experience from application process all the way to the end of the 6-month confusion period when you're back in the States?
Overall, I mean, I think that like the best way to put it was actually another RPC had said this to me a couple days ago. She's like, I really am glad I did it, but I would never do it again. It's like that kind of a thing. Like, I feel like I came out of it a better person. And you meet like your worst self and your best self during both of those times as well. So like you really get a much better grasp on like who you are and what you can deal with. It's a gauntlet, but like I feel like it's good for you in the end.
How long after you finished your service did you wait before coming back?
So I was home for actually 2 years? No, 2 years. And then I came back in the summer of 2015 because now I'm a PhD student in cultural anthropology, so I came back to do summer field work and language study. So the past 2 summers I've been back, and then next year I'll probably be here for either a full year or 2 sets of 6 months.
What exactly is it that you are researching right now in Mongolia?
I'm researching the culture of uranium mining in the Gobi and the Eastern Steppe.
How has your experience been with that?
It's been interesting. I think a lot of people think that I'm a journalist, and so they think that I'm out to like expose shady practices or like some sort of environmental thing, but I'm really just curious and here to learn. No judgment.
How long before do you think you will complete your research? in
Oh
Mongolia?
God! Well, if all goes well, it will be in 3 years. So I have another
Okay.
year of coursework, a year of field work, and a year of dissertation writing.
Right.
I don't know anyone that has finished their dissertation in 1 year though, so it might
Right.
be more than that.
Okay. So you will be coming back every summer until you finish, or
No, probably just 1 summer and then 1 year, and then yeah.
do you have any words of advice to incoming volunteers and volunteers who have just done their first year, people in training, etc.?
Try to learn the language as best you can,
Uh-huh.
even if it seems like a waste of time. Like it'll make your time a lot better. Learn your boundaries. And like don't do work that you really don't feel is useful or you don't want to do. It's like even if you're a TEFL volunteer and you really hate teaching and you don't feel like you're doing a good job, then do something else. Like you're not stuck in the track that Peace Corps
Right.
sends you. That would be my advice. And travel as much as you can in country.
Okay.
Like I never went to the West and I still regret that.
Well, thank you for interviewing with me and letting me record.
Sure.